Leaving that in. Welcome back to the Years of Making podcast with your hosts,
Lizzy
and Noah. Today is episode 17 of the Years of Making podcast. And today we have a pretty simple video for you guys. We have a lot going on. Let's just say, honey, what in the world are you doing? Let's just say that what we discussed in the last video, what we had in the works, has gone further in the works.
She's working.
And next episode, you will see what has changed and what we have been doing and what has happened. So we are definitely looking forward to the next steps. And I think the next episode should be showing exactly what we're talking about. So the hints may give it away for you, but we're trying our best to keep it to ourselves. But today's episode is pretty simple. I thought it would be a good idea because it's a new season. We're in a new era of life. So I think it's awesome to get into some spirituality episodes. We had a lot of people recommend that in the first season. And we did a few. But I think we would like to dig a little bit more into kind of where this all began, how this all started, our faith and our relationship and all this stuff. So we're going to do Lizzy's testimony today, and definitely in the future I'll give mine as well. But when it comes to I think Lizzy's testimony is more interesting than mine, so that's why I want to go ahead and do hers, because Lizzy doesn't get a lot of the mic time. It's usually me because I'm a professional yapper. It's on my bachelorette degree that I'm a professional yapper, bachelor's degree. But yeah, we just want to kind of tell you that we are in a new era. We're in a new season. And me and Lizzy have gotten into thrifting within the past week.
Our goal for the year, we're good with saving. But we were like, we're going to try to not buy like new clothes or stuff like that. And then Noah's super great at like going to a thrift store. He can just see a shoe. And he, depending on the price of it, he can literally, in the condition of it, whatever, he can tell you pretty much like the profit margin on it. So he just like has an eye for that. So it's a great way. Just to save money and then also like to resell, and it's a good little side gig too. Mm-hmm. So yeah. So we're in our thrifting era, and it becomes an addiction.
Definitely not.
Not for Noah. For me, it does.
So I'm going to give you a little inside hint. I'm not great at thrifting, but what I do is I do the Google image search, and then I look up the shoe, and then based on the value of a brand new item, I kind of take percentages off for it being used, and then it just there's certain aspects I use, to buy shoes, whether they're extremely used, then I usually don't get them if they have holes in them, no insoles, no laces, or if they're a really weird size. But I will say, what's gotten really ridiculous is like thrift stores, specifically Goodwills, like upcharging like
the heck out of stuff.
It's insane, like how much they're upcharging for certain things. Like Lizzy saw a pair of shoes the other day, $50.
And the thing is,
and they're used.
It's usually, I'm finding, so I like to go like after work, after my shifts. There's a Goodwill right at my work. So I'll just stop by on my way home or wherever. Goodwill tends to mark stuff up, and we have there's a few, maybe 3 of the local thrift store near us that we go to as well, or that I go to. And the funny thing is, Goodwill marks stuff up to like Plato's Closet prices.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
And the thing is with that, Goodwill has no investment in the item that they're marking up, where it's Plato. Like, okay, yeah, Plato's Closet is a nicer thrift store, but they are buying this stuff. Like, they are choosing what they're buying, so I feel like they have the right to mark it up.
Yeah.
Whereas Goodwill is literally being given this stuff.
Yeah. And I've always felt that, like, thrift stores and Goodwills were made for like lower income homes and lower income families to be able to go to these stores and be able to afford stuff. But I think if it's becoming like this, it's just going to continually get worse, and that they're overpricing stuff to where ridiculous. People can't even afford it. And it's not even like the pricing they're doing, they're upcharging stuff. it doesn't even like make sense
Mm-hmm.
because the shoe you could buy brand new $40 on Amazon and they're selling it used for $40. It just doesn't even make
Yeah.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot easier back in the day before COVID. Like going into Goodwill, just finding shoes that were just $7 because they used to price everything at $7. Um,
Do you think it's because that they found that people
People
are
are gonna
like
pay it.
reselling?
Yeah,
Do
yeah, that too.
people
Like
reselling?
me. I mean, they probably do
Yeah.
it because of me.
No one's the
Um,
reason. Sorry, you guys. No one's messed it up for everyone.
oh yeah,
I'm
that
just
was
kidding.
back in the day when I used to go to Goodwill religiously. I noticed they started upmarking
Because
products
of Noah.
because of me because I would go in there and get like nice shoes for $7, and then the next time I would come, it'd be like $20 more than 25, 30, and it just kept getting worse and worse.
Noah, to start things off, what is your biggest thrift? Like, what is your greatest thrift find? And like for example, like what is your greatest thrift find because like you resold it and made like a good chunk of change?
um, I don't. It wasn't even a thrift. It was a good. It was a Poshmark find. I
Hmm.
think it was. I paid like $40 for some like Air Jordan 1 lows, and then
Hmm.
I flipped them around and sold them for like 160 or 150 or something like that. Goodwill is harder to find good stuff. Like I found On Clouds before. I found Hoka's.
Hoka's.
Obviously any sort of Nike Air Max, Adidas, Ultra Boost stuff like that. I found stuff like that all the time. But back when I was really into it was when I was, trying to make a lot of money out of it. But it's not something you can just do on the side and live off of. It's something you have to,
It's a good
spend full time um, hours on. So.
yeah, it's a good little side gig though.
But we just wanted to let you know that we're in our thrifting era and give you a little rant of what exactly has been going on in the thrifting world. I'm sure plenty of you have noticed it if you do like thrifting. But, anyways, sorry, Lizzie, for taking
Can't believe you're taking my
so much
mic
of your
time. I'm
time.
just kidding.
Um, but if you want to go ahead and kind of dig into your testimony, start wherever you want. You can include whatever you want, exclude whatever you want.
And I'm trying to think where I should start.
Yeah, whatever
I
whatever you think
guess
the
I
best
mean
is.
I guess where I could start is I mean I grew up in a Christian household. Um I mean I grew up in the church that me and Noah go to now. So I've literally been at this church since I was a baby, and then Noah came and we met. As we'll get into later on, but I've always been at this church. My family still goes there. My grandparents go there. We've just always been there. So my dad grew up in this church under a different pastor, and then we just continued there until now. So I've always grown up in church. I mean, I would say my parents took us to church, like pretty religiously. Every Sunday morning, and then Sunday nights as well. Um, I'm trying to think where I should like go from that. So I guess where it really started was, my mom is a public school teacher, so I went to her school from kindergarten to would say from kindergarten to fifth grade. So I've been in public school for a good chunk of time, and then after leaving my mom's school, I went to a public middle school, and that's where things got kind of rocky. To fast forward, I know this is bad, but I cannot remember the date that I got saved. Um, I really can't. I want to say it was around the age of 10. I was at a friend's house and their parents were like I was at a friend's house for her birthday party, and then her parents like were doing things I knew wasn't right, so I asked to go home. And then that's where like it kind of opened the door for me to be saved and everything. And I went through a really not really I would say kind of a harder period of time where I think it was just that age, I was questioning things. I was like, I don't know if I'm saved. But I will say that I mean, I definitely did get saved there. It was just I know you went through a doubting period as well as you can get into during your testimony. Um but yeah, I went through a doubting period. I was just like, I just do not know if I'm saved. And I really prayed about it. And it was, it tug on my heart, especially because I'm like a 11-year-old kid. I'm not really facing super hard times. Like that was definitely a super challenging time. Um, I don't say I think I questioned if Jesus was real or anything. I was just questioning, am I saved? It just the Satan was just pulling on my heart, saying, you're not saved, whatever. Um, but thankfully, I did overcome that. But yeah, I would say I got saved around the age of 10. Um, and then jump into my middle school years. That was a really, really bad period for me. So I left my mom's school because I was only in elementary school, jumped into sixth grade at public school. I was just hanging around with people that I should not, partaking in things I should not like things that you're thinking of, not like drugs or anything, but just doing things as a Christian, being saved that I should have not partaken in. I was just, in a setting where, I mean, I was in public school. I was hanging around the wrong people. I guess I didn't know about maybe a group of like true Christians, but I was not hanging out with them. So I was not like feeding into my Christianity. Um, so that was a really, really bad time. And then when that was undergoing and happening, my parents decided that they were going to pull me out of public school and put me into private school, which was like my life was absolutely over. I mean, it was when they told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, you're like, I remember like crying for like at least a day or two because I was like leaving my friends in public school. So they pulled me out, put me in private school, and I remember back up a little bit when I was like undergoing this really bad time. I want to say I still have the postcards or the card stock somewhere, but I remember dad, you know, this came out and I was talking to my parents about it, and dad would write me a verse and like whatever every day to school and like packing in my lunchbox, like when I was in public school, saying whatever to like encourage me, which was super encouraging. And then I think that time when I was like doing all the wrong things, I was really, really like questioning my Christianity and everything. But I think me and dad, we just like talked it out and prayed about it, and I wouldn't say that I got resaved. It was more so I think I would just say like kind of reconnected with Jesus in a way. It's kind of like for that period I just kind of like pushed him away and did whatever I wanted. But like I was saved the whole entire time.
Right, right.
It wasn't like, oh, I was on the right I was doing all the wrong things and I got resaved. It was more like I got reconnected with Jesus after that point of time, and my dad really, really helped me through that and encouraged me through that, which is super helpful because I was really, really struggling. I think it was just at an age of like finding out who I was. Um, and like I was overweight and like I just kind of didn't fit in. And then it was just a lot happening. And then I was like in middle school and mom was pregnant and I was, it was just like a lot happening and I was like being tugged in so many different directions. I would just like do anything to fit in and find out
Mm-hmm.
who I was. So I think that's why like I indulge in things that I shouldn't have. Like I said, don't let your mind wander. It wasn't like terrible, terrible. It was not good for a 12-year-old, but it wasn't like anything like super terrible or anything. Um, so yeah, I went through that, battled that, reconnected with Jesus, and then my parents told me that they were pulling me out of public school, pulling me to private school. My two other siblings went to this private school at that point, so I was the only one in public school because I was doing decent in that environment, and then middle school struck, and I was just not doing well in that environment anymore. Um, excuse me. So I went to the Christian school that my two other siblings went to starting my seventh grade year, and it was so crazy. I mean, during this time is like when kind of me and Noah's story started, and like when we met. Because I was starting the Christian school in that August, and that July before is when we started dating, and then that May before I started private school is when Was it 2016 is when your family joined the
Yeah,
church?
yeah,
Okay.
May 2016.
Mm-hmm. So his family joined the church the May before I was starting Christian school that August. Well, me and Noah connected, find out he literally went to that Christian school, which is so crazy. And then his family joined the church that I've always been at. Started visiting, finally joined. And it was crazy. It was like such a God thing because I was like, I cannot believe my parents are pulling me out away from all my friends and putting me in this random school I don't know anyone at. And then it was super encouraging. Like, we met, we started talking, we started dating, and then I went to that school, and it was super encouraging, like knowing you there.
Mm.
Um, so that was, yeah, it was definitely a God thing. Like
Yeah.
talking about it and looking back at it, it's
Mm-hmm.
like that was
Like,
meant to happen.
yeah, you were going through a period where you needed someone that
Mm-hmm.
was going to encourage you and be a good Christian friend to you and Christian. I mean, obviously it's a friendship, but relationship on top of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I mean, it like you said, it's definitely a God thing because you saw what exactly went through your life and it came
Mm-hmm.
up to it's like, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing ever. And then you meet me and then realize we're going to the same school. We start dating, and then that August we're at the same school together. Now
Mm-hmm.
Lizzie's in a brand new school, but she has a Christian boyfriend, so to say, to be there for her, so
Mm-hmm.
she's not alone. Obviously Andrew, her brother, was there, and Kate, but they weren't in the same class.
Mm-hmm. And they were, I mean, they were younger. They were a good amount younger than me. Well,
Yeah,
Kate was.
but
Um,
you can like I was saying, like you can definitely see a God's hand in the
mm-hmm.
entire situation. Like you went through what you did, and it brought me and led me to you, which was perfect on God's timing.
Absolutely. Yeah. But like I said, dad was super encouraging during that time. My parents made the decision to pull me out ultimately. And then yeah, I was in the midst of like reconnecting with Jesus. But like I was like, I mean, I wasn't new to being a Christian, but I was like new to the reconnecting with Jesus part. And then met you, like you encouraged my walk of faith during that time because I think that I was just super. I mean, like I said, I was young. I mean, at this point, I was like 12. And then I was just like super young, trying to find out who I was. And then I was like super vulnerable. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I would, like partake in anything that
Mm-hmm.
would, I don't know, that would make me feel like, I
You
don't
were
know,
loved or
loved
wanted.
or anything.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just like super vulnerable because I didn't know who I was, what was happening, whatever during that time. Um, and then you came in my life and encouraged my walk of faith because I mean you joined the church and then yeah, I'm trying to think, is there anything else to that to add? But yeah, I mean Noah's played a huge part in my walk with faith for sure. I mean, like I remember I would come on Wednesday nights just to see Noah. um because like I didn't come on Wednesday nights, and then I started coming just because Noah was there, and then it was like, okay, I'm just going to see Noah, and then it became more like, oh, I'm actually going to like strengthen my relationship with
Right.
God. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I mean, yeah, it was kind of the wrong mindset to begin with, but I think it's a great way to start off because it's eventually going to fall into, oh, this is my, I'm going to grow my relationship with Jesus. And yeah, it is nice to be with Noah on, whenever, but ultimately I'm going to grow my relationship with him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's Lizzie's testimony. But no, by no means like just because Lizzie got into a Christian school and like from there was encouraging, like her faith was growing and stuff like that. I mean, by no means were we perfect. I mean, at that time, I can't say that my focus was directly on God because it wasn't. I mean, I know I had a relationship with God, but it wasn't what it should be, and I'm still working on it to be what it should be. And it's definitely a work in progress. But by no means were we perfect in our relationship. We had struggles of our own, and God, put us in the position we were in and led us to become married in the end. Um, yeah, but just because you moved from public school to Christian school didn't
That
make
doesn't
you
mean
perfect.
anything.
I
No,
mean,
it doesn't.
we still had our struggles. I mean, like I said, I wasn't fully like I wasn't fully in the relationship like I should have been. But it was just kind of like you knew where I stood with my Christianity, my faith, and it kind
Mm-hmm.
of encouraged you. And I did my best to encourage you throughout the way, because in my own faith was still growing too. So
Yeah.
um,
So we kind of met. I mean, we kind of met each other when
at
we,
a great time.
yeah. I mean, we were figuring things out.
You know,
Um,
teenagers,
yeah,
rebellious, so
yeah.
figuring things out, like Lizzie said. And I mean it's just crazy the testimony of what happened in your life, and you were at such a downslope, and then everything kind of clicked, and you had your conversations with dad, and you got saved, and eventually everything was up, and
Mm-hmm.
we it was a good sign. We were visiting churches, we joined y'all's church, and we started dating, and then from there it was up, 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 and up, and then now we're married. So
Yeah. I mean, when I was when I was saved, but I was like kind of rebellious. I mean, I wouldn't say I was like super connected with God, but I was still saved even in that point. But my thing is I know people like go through hardships today, and they're not saved, and like even though I did go through that hardship, and I wasn't super faithful to God, like praying, whatever. I was doing things I shouldn't. I was still saved. But like I could have not imagined how worse it would have been going through that. Yeah, it was awful, but I could not imagine like going through that time not being saved. You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like, I mean, people go through like hardships today, and I'm like, how like and aren't saved. And I'm like, how are you going? Like, how
yeah,
do you deal with that
right,
not being saved? So
yeah,
it could have been so much worse.
yeah.
And then I know that I mean, I would not want to go through that again,
Mm-mm.
but ultimately it's just cool to look back and be like, oh, like that was such a terrible time, but it led to something so good, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yep.
Um and I mean, we've gone through stuff like that before, even to this day. It's like, why is this happening right now?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't um I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like when you were going through your job situation, it's like, why in the world is this happening to someone like I'm trying to be faithful to
Yeah.
God and I'm trying to do this right, I'm trying to do that right. But it's like you look back and you're like, oh, like this was meant for something, so much greater. So
What the devil meant for bad, God meant for good.
what song is that? About Judah?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but I mean, you can go back and see the Lord's hand on everything, and He's
Mm-hmm.
been faithful to you. He's been good to you. He's been faithful to both of us and our relationship. And if we didn't both know Christ at the time we met, like it would have been really an interesting demeanor and phase, because like it was you got saved at a good time to where you were young in your faith when you met me, and I was still relatively young in my faith as well. Um, but it would have been a whole. I don't know what the story would have been if it like I was saved and you weren't, and then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes things like that go south. So I think it was all God's perfect plan, and it all worked out. And here we are today, sitting with one another with a widow cat. So, and like we said last time, our big announcement is not that we're pregnant, as far as I know.
So don't let your
So
mind
don't let
wonder.
your mind be wondering. Um, but Lizzie, is that the basis of your testimony?
Yeah, I think that's the basis of my testimony. Um,
Eh,
but yeah, it's just so cool to see
honey,
she's being rebellious.
you keep talking.
Anyways, yeah, I think that's the basis of everything, and it's just so cool to see, how everything came out, how everything played out in the
Yeah.
end, and ultimately, the Lord, for example, like I didn't want to go to private school, And if I followed my desire, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that private school made me perfect, but it did help me in different like faith-based areas. But it's like, for example, if I followed my desire and I was like, no, I'm not going to public school, I am staying, I'm not going to private school, I'm staying at public school. And if I followed that desire, that wasn't God's will, that was my will. And I don't think that things would have played out the way that they would have, So it just shows that God's will and God's way is best. So
And a question I had, the night you got saved, was it your mom and dad,
it, I,
or do you remember?
I would just remember it being mom.
Oh, just your mom. Okay.
I could be wrong, but I just remember it being mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you and her were in a bedroom, in their
We
bedroom.
were
Okay.
we were in the bed. We
Oh,
were in
okay.
the bed because this was at night. Because I was spending the night, and then I was like,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, I was spending the
And
night, and I
then
was like, no,
who
like
picked you up? Do you remember?
probably mom.
Okay.
I was like, no, like I'm going home, whatever. And then that is what sparked the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what we had for today. Like I said, we will. I'll get into my testimony later on. I think Lizzie's was a little bit cooler than mine. Mine's pretty boring.
No,
I
all the
mean,
testimonies are good.
all testimonies are good. Not boring. But yeah, next episode is going to be a great one. We're really looking forward to it. And like I said, I'll get to my testimony later on in the season. Once a few things pass. But anything else you got for the viewers? Lizzie, listening, Lizzie. I was trying to say listening and Lizzie at the same time.
Tongue twister. I don't think so. Thanks for joining us today.
We are glad that you guys listened to Lizzie's testimony story. And if you do have any questions, obviously you can always come to us about anything. Anybody that you have in your life that is a Christian, always, it's a good thing to come to people if you have questions because, even if they don't have the answers, they can, do their best to figure out the answers. And if, they don't come up with the answer, then they can talk about those questions to a pastor or, father figure and whatnot. So, yeah, like I said, if y'all have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to ask. We are an open book, pretty much. So, we love you guys. Thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of season 2, episode 17 of the entire podcast. We are very much looking forward to this next episode, and you guys may or may not be shocked.
Be ready.
Be ready. Be real. Okay. Okay. Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great day.
Love you guys.